We thought we'd spend a moment or two going over the history of Chardonnay in the Willamette Valley, primarily because the question that everyone asks is, why now? Is it new? Has it been around? Why is it so successful now? Why is there so much interest in it now? So we'd like to take you through a short timeline of the history of Chardonnay in the Willamette Valley, and it is not new. The original plantings in the Willamette Valley were three varieties: Pinot Noir, Riesling, and Chardonnay. We all know what's happened to Pinot Noir. It's now 65% of the plantings in red plantings in, total plantings in the Willamette Valley. And then Riesling, of course, has sadly gone the way of most New World Rieslings, and it's not much of a market niche. And finally, Chardonnay. And it never got off the ground really for two very specific reasons. One is sort of technical and easier to identify, and that's the issue of clonal material. When the first Californians came up to Oregon in the 60s, they brought their Pinot Noir and Chardonnay budwood with them from California. And the Pinot Noir, both Pommard and Wädenswil, translated beautifully to the Willamette Valley. In fact, some would say that Wädenswil is a far superior clone in a very cool climate like the Willamette Valley. But Chardonnay, not so much. The clones, primarily clone 4 that was brought up, which is called clone 108 in Oregon. And that clone did not ever really take off. It just needs more sunshine. And it was really David Adelsheim who was working in France, in Burgundy, and noticed that the Chardonnay grapes were coming into the Burgundian wineries at the same time or even earlier than Pinot Noir. His experience in the Willamette Valley was that those grapes were ripening 2 to 3 weeks later and sometimes didn't ripen at all. So what was the reason? And the answer was the clonal material. So starting in the 80s, David brought over through the Oregon State quarantine program. Quarantine, it's a word we all know well now, isn't it? Brought through the quarantine program, the clones from Burgundy. And they were 75, 76 and 95, 96 over a period of years. And really now 76 and 95 are the two clones that we use throughout the Willamette Valley. What was the other reason that Chardonnay never took off? And I think the irony of it is really it's Kendall Jackson Vintner's Reserve is the reason. And that wine was so delicious and so ubiquitous and so well received that created what everyone considered the new world style of Chardonnay. And you all know already that Oregon cannot make that wine. Even with climate change, we cannot make that wine. We will never make that wine. And we look to very different qualifications for the grapes. As mentioned earlier, we look for structure. We're trying to get acid and pH. We're not looking for alcohol and ripeness, and we don't use new wood to prop up the flavors as well. So it's a very different approach to winemaking. What's exciting for us is the fact that this style of Chardonnay, which is the only style that we're going to be able to make in our cool climate, is now a style that America loves and is receiving well, and the gatekeepers are absolutely enamored. They're smitten, in fact, with this category of wine. And we are so well positioned with our vineyard assets here at JFW to take full advantage of this opportunity.